Welcome back to my channel at The Movie Optimist, where I try and find the silver linings in even the worst of films. Tonight, I just got done watching the newest film, Until Dawn, directed by David F. Sandberg. For those of you who don't know him, he got his start on YouTube making short films like Lights Out, which gained so much attention and popularity that Hollywood handed him the reins to go and turn it into a feature-length movie. It was so popular that he then got the chance to go off and do the prequel, Annabelle Creation, which was also super popular, so he was able to go on and make the two Shazam films for DC under Warner Brothers before it got rebooted by James Gunn. Now he's tackling a very popular PlayStation video game that is about a bunch of kids that go to a house and have to survive until dawn. However, here he puts a different twist on it. The only question is, does he do it any justice? Essentially in this film, we follow a bunch of friends as they embark on a journey to try and track down one of the friend's missing sister. Essentially, the sister left home to travel to New York City to start a new life, but never made it there, and because the other sister that's still around needs closure, the friends are like, well, let's give her that closure by going on this road trip. Maybe we could find out what happened to her and we could put this all behind us. So they embark on this quest, and while about halfway to the city, they run into a really bad rainstorm, which makes it incapable for them to drive through. So it sends them seeking shelter in this really creepy house in the middle of nowhere. Now, when they get there and they get inside, they learn that there is a killer on the premises trying to break in and kill them, which eventually he does. He gets inside and murders them all very brutally, only for them to all wake up an hour prior to the events of the killer trying to get inside and kill them, leading them to realize that they're reliving the same night over after they were just murdered. Over the course of the film, they learn that every time they die and wake back up, a new horror awaits them, something different. It's not going to be the same thing, so they don't know what to expect. They don't know what to anticipate, so every night they're starting fresh. And if they can just survive until dawn, they can get out alive. But they only have 12 or 13 tries before they wind up getting stuck in this purgatory hell forever. I'm not giving away a spoiler. It's not actually purgatory or hell. It's just, that's kind of what it feels like from the outside looking in. But anyway, if I was going to relate this to another movie, I would say it's a Cabin in the Woods meets Groundhog Day. Whereas in Groundhog Day, it was about a bunch of people reliving the same day over and over, and Cabin in the Woods was a self-aware movie that was more so a comedy, but it was paying homage to a ton of horror movies that came before it. It was clearly a bunch of directors and writers that just love the horror genre and love creature features, so they made a movie where you get to see 400 different types of famous iconic movie monsters all in one movie, having this epic showdown at the end. That's essentially what this movie is, but whereas in, like I said, Cabin in the Woods was self-aware at the fact that it was more so a comedy paying homage to these tropes, Until Dawn is playing a lot more serious, and it's not comical at all, and that's kind of where the movie faltered for me a little bit. If you're gonna take a genre like this seriously, where these teenagers are living the same night over and over, you need to have a really good reason for this happening, a really good reason for them being there, and you need characters that you really get behind and root for and have really good, strong character arcs. One of my favorite character arcs from a horror movie is the dad in The Hills Have Eyes, where he starts the movie as kind of like a coward, and by the end of it, when he picks up the shotgun and he starts mowing down all of these disfigured creeps, you're literally standing out of your seat and cheering because it's so satisfying seeing him come 180 and become a badass by the end of it. You legitimately care for him after all of this stuff that he went through, after losing his wife and his kids and everybody else that were close to him. Like, you get to a point where you just want to see him turn the tides, that he does. But what Until Dawn does is there's never any stakes, at least for the first 75% of the film, where you just know they're going to get to respawn and relive it again. So there's no stakes and there's no arcs for anyone to really go to until the last 25% of this film, where they're essentially on their last life and they legitimately have to figure out what the hell is going on now. They can't just keep running and hiding. They eventually have to stop and figure this out and fight back. And then we do get some small little arcs in here, especially towards the end with the main girl, the one sister that's looking for the other sister. She has kind of a nice arc by the end of it, but the way that you get closure on what's happening in this house relies solely on how much you care about what this one sister is going through and the things that she's been burdened with in the past, but they don't spend enough time letting you sit with that with her. They don't spend enough time indulging in that part of her that you could really understand what she went through and why she was suicidal, as they say in the movie, and stuff like that. So you never really care. So when they pull the curtain back at the end, you're like, yeah, there's the arc, but I don't care about it because we didn't have enough time to really understand it ourselves as viewers. Kind of like in Mia in the Evil Dead remake. When they first get to the cabin, you learn that they're there to try and get her away from drugs. She's a drug addict and they're trying to help her get clean. And you're watching her go through this torment of essentially relapsing because she hasn't had drugs in a while and no one trusts her. They all think she's a fuck up. And by the end of the film, she winds up being the only one to survive and actually saves the day. Whereas in here, they're going for a very similar thing where they want you to have that moment of like, okay, she finally overcame her trauma, but again, you never actually care about it because they only touch upon it briefly in the beginning during like a quick 30-second dialogue, and then it's never touched upon again. She never seems like she's really struggling with this thing that's supposed to hit you in the feels towards the end of it. So I don't think any of the arcs were really earned. As a matter of fact, nobody really has an arc. The one guy in the film plays an asshole who pretty much up until the very end, he is kind of an asshole. Then you got the other guy that's really just along for the ride because he's in love with the main girl and he wants to make sure she's okay. He doesn't really have any arcs to go through either. You really don't know anything about these characters other than they're there to support their friend. So you never actually care about anybody. Now, whereas in the story isn't trying to do anything groundbreaking, it's not the M. Night Shyamalan of horror, it's not going to give you something you haven't seen before, it's not going to reinvent the wheel the way Zach Kreger gave us Barbarian a couple years ago, which was amazing. It doesn't feel unique in the sense of this is something new to give us. It definitely feels like something we've gotten before. But where the story fails and the fact that you don't really care too much about any of the characters, the rest of the movie makes up for it. And what I mean by that is this movie is really just watch a bunch of teenagers die in increasingly gory ways by increasingly scarier creatures. If you just want to show up and watch teenagers die over and over and over in, again, increasingly unique ways that differentiate themselves from every other time they died, you're gonna have a blast because this movie wastes no time hitting the ground running. You spend maybe the first 15 minutes getting to know the characters a little bit, they get into the house, and then boom. You never go more than like 5 minutes without a really cool, unique way to watch these kids die. Whether that be from getting eaten, blown up, impaled by axes, there's many different ways that you get to watch these kids suffer. And if that's all it takes for you to have fun, then I think you're gonna enjoy this movie. This movie is also done with predominantly practical effects, which I love. I hate when you get the CGI blood and like when somebody explodes, it's like clearly like computer animated graphics. Like you could tell you're watching like a PlayStation cutscene. But here they find ways to do things like blow up mannequins filled with fake guts and have these really disgusting creatures pop out of people's cheeks and stuff and crawl around their face, and everything's done really practically. So whereas in the story was kind of weak to me, 90% of this movie is just watching people getting killed in increasingly cool ways. So I was always entertained. This movie's never boring. It's beautiful to look at. The cinematography is amazing here. The lighting, it's super moody. It's super dark. One of the things that David F. Sandberg does so well is play with shadows and darkness, where a lot of horror movies, even though things are dark, you could still see in the dark. It's just the character can't, but we can. Whereas in here, when things are pitch black, they're pitch black. And it's something David Sandberg has done as well as he has since Lights Out, where darkness is kind of his thing. And this movie legitimately does have some really creepy moments where they're getting chased through these catacombs by these creatures and you could barely see what's going on. And I genuinely felt my heart rate going up and I was gripping the edges of my seat. This movie has some legitimately scary moments in it. So yeah, look guys, on one hand, the story, nothing new, kind of formulaic. None of the characters really have good arcs to go through, but the movie has hundreds of different really cool, unique kills. It is legitimately scary at parts. I did have a good time watching these kids try and figure out how to get out of this never-ending nightmare. And although I thought that the reveal of what's going on and how they overcame it wasn't earned, it's still satisfying to see the pieces finally fall into place, even if they were a little underwhelming. I'm gonna give this movie a 6 out of 10. It's hard not to get it just across the finish line, where looking back at it, I did have a legitimately fun time for 95% of this film, and I am a lot more forgiving on the fact that, yeah, the story was weak, but I had fun watching kids die for an hour and a half in 4,000 different ways. So if that's something that you think you can get behind, you just want to show up to watch people die practically by creatures that you've probably seen in horror movies over the last 30 years, I think you'll enjoy this movie. Just don't go in expecting something special, something new. It's definitely just a movie paying homage to many other horror movies that came before it. So yeah, that's my thoughts on this movie. Now I'm going to start this new thing at the end of every review where I compare my thoughts to Rotten Tomatoes. 59% of people that go and watch this movie like it. So it's literally 1 point away from what I said. So I'm not far off from what the critics think. The audience reviews aren't out yet, but usually audiences are a little bit more forgiving on horror movies than critics are. So overall, I'm going to say this movie is a positive. Anyway, guys, I'd love to know what you guys think in the comments down below. Did you play the video game? If you have, did that make you not want to see this movie? Because at the end of the day, this movie is much different from what the video game was. They used the name essentially and crafted an entirely different experience around it. I, for one, can go into a movie based off of original IP and not care if they change things, but there are a lot of other people that if it's not exactly like the game, not exactly like the book, they hate it. I don't really care. Show me the movie. If it's a good movie, it's a good movie, even if it's loosely based off of something else. Has that turned you off and made you not want to see it if you're a fan of the game? Or maybe you haven't played the game. What did you think of the trailer? Did I give you a reason to want to go to the movies to see it this weekend? If I have, I'd love to talk about it in the comments down below. If you've already seen it, I'd love to talk about it in the comments down below. Anyway, guys, I hope you have a great rest of your weekend, and as always, I'll catch you next time.